itch, I'm like, wait, do I have the itch to lose my weekend and feel like an idiot? Because that's what's going to happen. So unless I actually want to feel like an idiot, then no.
Well, good for you, man. A lot of people don't snap out of it. You know, so many people get trapped in these destructive thought and behavior patterns, and they just can't get out. And no one else can really get them out. You know, unfortunately, you know, you fortunately found whatever you needed to like snap out of it. Not everybody does.
The question, what happened last time? What are you feeling? What is it encouraging you to do? And then last time you felt that way and took the action, what happened? Was it what you wanted? Was the outcome the motivation? Like, you know what I mean?
Not everybody has that kind of I don't know, ability to introspect, to first understand in an intellectual sense there, and then the willpower. You know what I mean? The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. Weak.
That's true. That's true.
It is true, you know. And I'm just speaking as a person that knows a lot of people that are like caught in these self-destructive thought and behavior patterns, and like you can explain it to them when they're sober or what have you, and they can follow the intellectualization of the problem, but when it's on the table, they just don't have the willpower to say no. Even though intellectually they might know, I'm going to regret this later in the moment. And I mean, this is also speaking as a person that has my share of vices too. Like, I mean, I'm not talking as a person that's never experienced that per se.
Biological recipes are harder than like gambling is one where it's like it starts off as an intellectual one because it's like I wanted to make some money. That's already an intellectual exercise. I know gambling, you know. It's not so much like a biological like sex
gambling's a weird one.
Stuff.
Well, it's not like a drug. Like I mean, with something
or a drug or something.
Well, with something like drugs, it's just easy to point to. And it's easy to point to and say like, oh, here's a chemical, your brain's getting addicted to the chemical, blah blah blah. Actually, I don't think it's any different because the chemicals that are produced in your brain when you're gambling and you win, that is a drug.
Dopamine.
Right.
And,
I don't think any different than video game addiction is like gambling addiction.
Media.
Right. All those things. I don't think any of them are actually different. It's just easier to point to drugs, physical, external drugs, and it's an easy difference to understand and see. But they're not actually different. Fishing is a drug. I looked it up because I'm worried that I've got a problem.
Gardening is a
It's
drug.
that fucking dopamine, man. As soon as damn.
Nice.
Dopamine. Oh yeah.
I got one.
I know it.
It's the achievement chemical.
It's not officially recognized by the American Association of Psychological whatever. I looked into it because I spent a lot of time thinking about fishing.
I got a question for you. Do you think you are there's people who having is the most important thing. There's the people who visually they want to see it. There's people who auditory. What kind of person do you think you are?
You might have to be more specific for me to understand exactly what you mean.
Like for a person who, like I'll say "see ya" to my parents as a way to say like I love you because I know they're visual people, and other people would be like they want to give you a gift or they want to take a gift, and so everyone's got. I think it's like love. I think people call it love language.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I've heard of that before.
I don't really call it that. I call it more like.
Yeah, you can call it whatever you want, but I think I understand what you mean.
Are you a visual person? It sounds like if you're doing with fish, that's like a have person. Like you like to have things. You like, and when a fish comes in, all of a sudden you got a new thing, and you can hold it in your hands. If you love fishing more than anything, I would say you're a have person. You want to hold this effing fish in your hand.
I want to hold the fish.
Yeah.
And I really like. If I don't get a picture of it, it might as well not have happened.
Oh, so visual. So maybe you give out visual as your love language, but when you receive it, it's having.
I would say when I give it out, it is more doing.
Or no, now you can have a picture of it too.
Like for me to express like love for my wife is doing nice things for her. I wake up every morning, I make her coffee, I bring it to her in bed, I cook her breakfast. every morning, if it's cold out, I start her car. So when she has to go to work, she gets into a nice warm car. I scrape her windows.
Does that help you get out of bed too then?
Maybe, kind of, sort of. I don't
Like
know.
when she's out of town, are you just kind of like moping around in the morning?
Well, no, because I always wake up early.
Okay.
Yeah, so. I mean, that being said, on a weekend, if I have nothing to do, I'll sleep till 9:30.
Dude, I
So-
freelance starting at 11.
Yeah,
I'll
well.
typically go
Well,
to bed
now
around
that
1
being said,
or
so I'll
2.
be the first to say this. If I have no work to do and nothing, and I'm allowed, like I took a week off last winter.
Well, I do work, but it's just.
If I don't have to work and I don't have any like major responsibilities on me, I will stay up later every night and sleep later every morning. I fucked myself hard over the winter. I took like 1 week off, and pretty soon I'm up till 3 o'clock in the morning and sleep until noon. Like I will fall into that real easily. So I don't know what that means.
It does hit a limit though.
At the same
once you
time,
hit noon,
I
it's so-
regularly get up at 4:30 in the morning. I do jujitsu at 5. Then I'm like jacked up and ready to go for my work day.
You know,
But then I'm passed out at 8 o'clock at night. So I don't know.
before this whole Corona thing happened, I was like, why does everyone go to work at the same time? Like, we have these roads, okay, right? And everyone's like, you know what? Let's all use them at the same time. Like, how much fucking sense does that make? And I can understand it for certain businesses where it's like, I want to talk to that business, well, I'm open. He wants to talk to me, well, I'm open. So we're going to synchronize our open times so that I can talk to him. I'm at work, I can talk to him.
I think it's more or less like that because the only jobs that people go to that are in the well, I mean, you can see that most like second shift jobs are either then manufacturing. They're not. It's nothing service. Anything service is 9 to 5. Besides like restaurants, bars, blah blah blah, which is a different type of service. Now you're doing second shift. Neither of those are open for third shift, which is where people can still
Factories.
be productive, produce things, blah blah blah. But
That's the coolest shift. It's working a factory third shift.
I don't. Well, I've never done. I've done second. I guess I've never done.
Nobody
third
really
shift.
cares as much as they do. Like, yeah, you know, I don't know.
Ideally, to me, like I think the whole system is bullshit. Everybody should be able to,
Well,
like
there
live
is
according to
always
their
going to be a
own,
system, right?
like circadian rhythms. You know what I mean? Like naturally, I want to wake up. Like I regularly wake up at first light.
There's always
I
gonna be a
don't always
system.
get up, but I naturally wake up, and I am absolutely the most productive the first like 4 hours of the day. I can whip a lot of ass. After lunch, yeah, I'll still keep on kicking ass, but I also don't think anybody should have to work more than 4 hours a day. I think the whole fucking idea of an 8 to 10 hour work shift is an artificially imposed system by our slave master overlords.
It's somewhat arbitrary. I'll give you that.
It's extremely arbitrary. It's in complete disregard of your like biological needs.
I think, like, okay, let's say somehow there's a clear slate, like, and I can create a new country. Like, let's say I've always wanted to do like a bunch of plastic bottles and create my own island, and then just create like a giant country that grows over time because we can.
You just go on a garbage island in the middle of this pit. Isn't it like the size of Texas or something stupid?
I don't know about that. I've
Never heard of
actually-
garbage island?
I've heard of it, but I've never actually like seen a picture of it.
I've never seen it either.
This would be a great time if we had like
Yeah, we
Jamie
need
pull
Jamie.
up-
Pull up this screen and show us garbage island.
Well, I'll figure this out for next time. We can pull stuff up.
Yeah, that would be nice if we could
But it doesn't change my premise, which is like I've wanted to create my own. And I think space is another way to do this, where it's like you go out and you create a space station, and it increases in size over time. And I actually think this is where the human race is going: is go out, settle something, make it. And it's probably how it's been going for in the past. Like the United States started off as a couple colonies that grew. So anyway, if I had that, I would say, all right, let's do city centers in certain places, right? And then inside the city centers, they're the most regulated, most democratic places, right? Because you got to put up with all these other people who are near you. So you need more rules because you're going to fuck with people if you don't follow the rules. And then there's like places out in the country where there's not as many rules. And then I would say, let's try to let's have the right number of people so that all the food can kind of come from a close area, you know? So don't get too many people in the city centers. Let them densely populate, sure, but So then maybe you got to spread out your city centers, but all this stuff is happening organically. People, and it's happening on an individual basis. But in another way, it's still a system because if a city starts to suck, people will move. So in a way, it's like not you deciding how many people live here, but it's the collective doing it.
I think I understand you completely. I don't know if I'm on exactly the same page, but now I don't like to attach a lot of labels to myself, but if I had a political stance, I am an anarchist. I don't believe in the fucking government or
But
centralized.
that only works out in the country where there's fewer people to anarchist with.
I disagree.
The more anarchists you get in a room, the more people die.
Well, I disagree.
One anarchist in the room, great. Like they can do whatever they want.
Well,
But you get
no.
two of them, and all of a sudden now they're anarchists against each other, and one person's like, "Hey, no, that's against the rules." And it's like, "No, man, there's no rules." It's like,
Well,
you.
now, okay. Now, if we're going to talk about this as a serious political philosophy, I'm not exactly saying no rules. That's not exactly what I'm saying.
Libertarian then?
Let's disregard labels. Here's what I'm proposing. I don't want any rules imposed upon me by an organization with which I did not voluntarily associate and didn't voluntarily agree to. If you and I make an agreement, that's in a sense a rule.
Yes.
Jason and Schumann come up with a contract and I say blah blah blah. I'm going to abide by that rule that I voluntarily
As a disagreeable person, opted into.
Right.
And had a
Exactly.
say over.
And I want to live in a world where all associations are voluntary. Simply that, and that power is decentralized.
Yes, but being alive has some constraints. Being alive, you take up space. There are certain things with being alive that have, you know what I mean? I'm not really sure how to articulate this.
Well, it's okay.
The fact that you're
let me say
alive
this.
means that
I'm
there's some things you got to agree to just because you're alive. Like breathing air is one.
Absolutely.
You never
Well,
agreed to breathing
well,
air.
okay, so,
Like,
funny enough, so I don't know how many people have really read about much what Einstein had to say. Einstein said people are not free. There is no sense in which people are free. You are imposed upon by all sorts of constraints, by time and space and biology and everything else. Gravity.
Which we're trying to conquer right now, and it's always been like the human goal to reach the heavens, right?
Yeah, well, I think we are, but anyway, so yeah, absolutely, we're never going to get around the natural laws. And anyway, okay,
Not yet.
but to stay sort of on track.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's certain natural laws that we all have to obey and things like that. All I'm simply proposing is that all human interactions could be voluntary.
That's very capitalistic.
Doesn't that seem reasonable?
Yeah, sure.
I mean,
I'm a capitalist. I agree with that.
Well, okay. As opposed to, for example, like I was born into this like somewhat historically arbitrary geographical area, and now I'm just co-opted into this system that like I didn't agree to any of this.
It has some benefits though.
Okay.
Because we were born near each other and we're friends.
Fair enough. There's lots of benefits, but if we're going to talk about like ethics and morality and things like
Right.
that, okay. But I didn't agree to any of it.
That's where I think space is the answer.
It is the answer.
Because
If you want to jump way ahead, space
even-
is the answer.
well, even not ahead now, states' rights. Because let's say
States-
states were more different than they are right now, where you could go to Florida and it's very, there's maybe more chance you get shot, but you can have more gun rights, that kind of thing.
Can I vape in here? Would you rather not?
Does it smell?
No.
Go for it.
It's just nicotine.
Okay.
If it bothers you, let me know.
No, go for
I didn't know if you had like sensitive electronics or anything like that.
Nah, I mean, it's not gonna hurt them.
Okay. If you don't, as long as you don't.
No, go for it.
Um.
So I mean, states' rights is a way to sort of have. We got 50 different rule sets here, depending on what kind of person you are, you can go to pick that one. And in a way, that's like a precursor to space stations, where like you can have a really lawless space station, you can have a really strict one, and wherever you go, you can actually opt into the rules. And same with countries. If you want a really like conservative country, like Japan, or you could go to a really crazy country like Brazil, or I won't say crazy, but then like more liberal or more bodily.
Okay, I hear you 100%. However, there is no place on earth that you can go really where you don't get out of the same basic problem.
Okay.
Which is that wherever you go, like some state owns that fucking land and is going to force you to abide by their rules and pay their taxes and things like that. There isn't anywhere you can go, like, unless you form Garbage Island and start your own country, you can't go out anywhere and like stake your own territory and make your own rules. You got to abide by somebody else's rules that are not enforced and legitimized by anything other than their ability to physically force you to comply.
Okay, so let's have Garbage Island, right? Let's imagine it. Let's have like a 10 by 10 grid, and there's one person to so there's like 100 people here, and they're all spread out equally, they all have a mile. And now, so one person, he walks a mile, and and his neighbor's mad, and then his neighbor goes to his 3 other neighbors, and is like, hey, that guy over there, he kind of messed with me. So now all of a sudden those 4 are a group, and now those 4 kind of go around. And it's like particles bouncing around and it's like in a vacuum. You got 100 particles, they're all going to bounce around, they're all going to hit each other, and eventually they might all and they're all going to. Humans have a viscosity like water. We bump into each other and we kind of stick together a little bit, and it might take a lot to separate us. But then if we get connected again, you know what I mean? So as soon as people start bouncing around in a free anarchistic society, people are going to associate immediately, and he's my friend.
As they should.
And as they associate, that's a government immediately. Because any association is an agreement to a certain set of rules.
Okay. So let's define government. What is the difference between the government?
Minimum viable government, or like the government we have?
Let's speak in a little bit of the abstract. Okay. So, what is the difference between a government and any other human organization?
From the abstract, nothing.
Well, see, I disagree. Now, Microsoft.
So, what do you call it when 3 people get a mob? What do you call it when 3 people get together and like on Garbage Island? Let's say everyone's a one-person node. And then one person bumps into another person, and then the second person forms a node with his neighbors. He's like, "Oh, I don't want that to happen again. Hey, come here, come. Let's."
Are they going to force the other person to do things?
A collective. They're going to force them to not mess with them. Let
me see if I can. Okay, so a corporation like Microsoft or whatever is a voluntary organization. You don't have to work there. If you want to work there, you got to abide by some rules, but you don't have to work there. Right.
Yes.
And Microsoft interacts with the public by providing a service for which you can either pay or not pay if you want their service, right? Now, a government is an organization in which you are involuntarily co-opted.
But you could move away to a different country.
Right,
but there's the viscosity. It's stickier.
Right,
it's much stickier because
but there isn't anywhere to go. Where can you go?
Well, you could go to a different country.
But the same essential problem.
You could go into space, into the wilderness.
Okay, all right. Well, I'll grant you that.
In space, though, I would wager that you are way more dependent than you are in a government, because there's no natural resources, so you are 100% dependent. Well, until you're critical mass in space, where you're grabbing asteroids. You're doing, you know what I mean.
Well, and we're not there yet.
Yeah,
and you could go into the wilderness.
So let's talk about like backwards of Canada.
But all I'm trying to say is a government, as opposed to a corporation or any other voluntary human organization, is an organization that co-ops people involuntarily into itself and then demands at essentially gunpoint payment from its constituents for its services.
Yeah, that's neurotic though.
It's not.
So
It's absolutely
okay,
a
let's
fact.
look at
And
the-
I would contend, let me finish
Okay.
real quick.
Okay.
I would contend that the government operates on the same ethical premise as the mafia. You are paying for protection.
I agree with you about the gun thing, and that's why government should not be the answer unless nothing else is possible.
And all I'm saying is that
So
I
agree.
just
Any-
want to
any
propose.
government law, and people are like, oh, it's just a law, like because it's all backed up by someone with a gun. Like you don't do
At the
that,
end of
you
the
get a
day,
fine. You
all
don't do
of
the
the
fine.
order of our society is enforced by the gun. At
Right.
the end of the day, it's not a society that is formed by free association.
But let me talk about the other part of it, which is not necessarily the enforcement, but the arbitrariness of it, which is it's kind of like a reality. Like when you're asleep, there's nothing your mind can imagine anything. When you're awake, there's these arbitrary things. You could argue that the couch is arbitrary. Like why is it there? Why are those particles there? It's forcing my mind to. I have to be aware of those things because they're there. So it's somewhat arbitrary. And so in the way governments are like the same thing. If they're there, they're real, you gotta deal with them. You can't really get away from them unless you kind of close your eyes.
Well, right now, absolutely, I agree. Although, so right now, absolutely, there's the reality of the situation. We live in a world, it's governed by various governments and everything like that. I don't deny that whatsoever. And I'm not even saying that up to this point in history, if you study history to understand how we came from where we
I'm gonna make
were,
sure this is still going. I don't. Yeah. It says 45 minutes.
it's not even too bad.
Okay.
But where we
I
were,
just don't want it to
where
like
we
stop
going?
and lose it all.
I'm not saying that it wasn't necessary to this point. I'm saying, like a child leaving the cradle, like a bird leaving the nest, it is something that humanity can leave behind in the next stage of our evolution, is what I am saying.
And what I'm
And
saying
what
is-
I am proposing, let me real quick finish. What I am proposing is not a utopia, because being humans, we are saddled with all sorts of burdens of biology and time and space and everything else. I am not proposing a utopia, and I am not proposing something that can happen in a vacuum. What I am proposing is something that has to happen in the future, and we have a big problem, if you will, with getting from where we are now, which is where we need to be, because we are here, to where we want to go. You could propose any sort of utopia that you want, and you would still need to get from where we are to where we want to go. And
Yeah.
I'm saying the same thing, and I'm not proposing utopia. I'm just proposing something that I would think would be another notch better. I'm not a dissatisfied man. I've got a great life. I got a great family,
So
great
where
friends.
would you take where we are now? Where would be the next step
Well,
for
okay,
you? Like
I-
what direction are you even pointing in?
okay. What I'm saying is what we need to dispense with. Ooh, I feel so bad.
Who is that?
My buddy Preston.
Okay.
He needs my power washer. But what I'm proposing is that we simply. What I'm not proposing is any sort of violent overthrow of the government or any nonsense like that. I am proposing a recognition
I'm gonna
of
turn
what
that
are the
air
in,
off.
of what are the
Camera picks it up.
indispensable elements of government and getting rid of them. Let's start with the simplest.
Oh, sure, I'm there. I'm there too.
Well, right. Okay.